Hello, my name is Jerry Wise, and this video is entitled Building an Emotional Backbone. I think there are many misunderstandings about what emotional backbone is. I tend to like the family systems approach to an emotional backbone versus just, say, an assertiveness model. Because oftentimes I believe people confuse being louder, being stronger, saying things more angrily, speaking up without knowing how the system is going to be affected by that, and then speaking up in a wiser way versus just speaking up and maybe speaking up out of part of ourselves that are actually unhealthy. Because I believe actually expressing assertiveness or being strong can sometimes more often serve the status quo than actually change anything or be different. Actually, it just ends up being the same cycle over and over again. It's just now you're the persecutor and they're the victim. Then it goes from you're the victim to they're the persecutor, and vice versa, and it goes round and round. And that's not my idea of having an emotional background or backbone. How I see that is basically it's just repeating the patterns over again. It's just people switch chairs at the same concert. Well, I want to go to a whole different concert and a whole different ball game to have emotional backbone. Many of us who grew up in dysfunctional families in which we find both codependence and counterdependence. Codependents are those who are more minus+, I'm not okay, you're okay. Counterdependents come from more of a position of I'm okay, you're not okay, a plus-minus. And I think emotional backbone requires a plus-plus approach. But that's very hard for codependents and counterdependents. Counterdependents are people controllers, codependents are people pleasers. Neither have healthy, strong emotional backbones. And again, I believe a healthy emotional backbone ends up being a plus-plus, or the old transactional phrase of I'm okay, you're okay. And I believe that's a very important relational stance, because if we don't take an I'm okay, you're okay approach, then we are going to remain in the status quo of patterns that don't work, and we're going to continue to perpetuate dysfunctional patterns in our relationships. Most of us are searching and desiring more emotional backbone. We want a strong sense of self. We'd like to have an ability to be less reactive. We want to be less shaken by conflict. We want to be able to state our wants and needs clearly. We want to stand firm with boundaries. We want to be able to say no in a healthy way without guilt. We want to reduce the plus and minus and plus life we have created around us. We want to not undermine ourselves with our abandonment, shame, fear of reactions, or ACOA issues. We want to know what is normal and expect what is normal for my life, to discover what I want and need, to discover who I am, not a self based on who others think I am or need me to be, and to overcome our allergy to intimacy and be able to receive and to give real love. That's kind of my view of having an emotional backbone. We also want to, I want to encourage those who are watching this video to maybe avoid the quick fix, because there is a quick fix out there. There's lots of them. There's tons of books that say do A, B, and C, and you will have an emotional backbone. Actually, when I've talked with people and people have tried those approaches, again, they end up repeating the patterns only from a different chair in the room. They haven't changed the room, they haven't changed the rules, they haven't changed the game. They've just switched their position around a little bit. And that maybe we can start trying a deeper fix or a more permanent fix. When we try to change ourselves from the outside in, we often end up feeling defeated when we find ourselves back in our old ruts. And we find we can't keep the change going. In other words, if somebody says, well, you just need to speak up, you just need to say something. Well, there are times we do need to say something. I'm not against saying something, and I'm not against speaking up. The difficulty is, if there is an entrenched pattern that exists and in a relationship imbalance that exists in a relationship, and you speak up, that can cause lots of problems and difficulties if you're not prepared for them, if you don't know what to do as what's my next step, if you don't predict possible outcomes so you can make other and prepare other responses and other behaviors so that we can keep the change going. Often that one little tip is not helpful enough. We need a lot more, or need more information. We need to be able to observe more to actually make the change stick. Here are a couple examples. A wife goes home and states to her husband that she wants some time away from the kids and her husband and have the girls' night out or girls' weekend with her girlfriends. And she has read that she needs to stand up for herself and tell or demand to her husband to hear her. Her husband then goes on the surface and, quote, allows her to go, but then ends up calling her numerous times per day out of his anxiety or his controlling and abandonment issues. This ends up ruining her trip. The wife gives up and says it's just not worth it to stand up for myself. See what happens? It's just, I'm miserable if I stay home and I'm miserable if I go. Well, the difficulty and the problems there was not that she didn't stand up for herself. It's just she didn't know anything else but to stand up for herself. There's a lot more to building an emotional backbone than just doing that alone. There's a lot more going on, and there's a lot more happening, and we need to be prepared for it. Secondly, a man is controlled and guilt-tripped by his mother that he tries to get his mother to hear him and what he wants and needs. His mother ignores him and tries to get him to see how wrong he is and how her way is the best. He stands up to her or is assertive with her because his How to Be Assertive in 3 Easy Steps, his How to Be Assertive in 3 Easy Steps book just said, go and tell someone what you need and what you want and be firm and don't back down. His mother tells all of his siblings how mean he's being. She is also triangled in with the man's wife to get him to get back in line. She even uses the grandkids to get her son to do what she thinks he should do. What she thinks he should do. He is frustrated with all the resistance, and his newfound strength starts to crumble or melt. He goes through drama and trauma with his mother, his wife, his kids, and just gives up going back to the same rut and wonders how he can ever be assertive in a way that works. These simple behavioral approaches, or what I consider outside-in approaches, and the 3 easy step approaches often fail. Unfortunately, because they don't address our inner child or the child within us who grew up and was imprinted by our family of origin. They don't address our stuckness within our family of origin and often our current family, wife, kids, etc. They don't address the parts of us which are wounded, hurting, shamed, confused, scared, abandoned, which cause the problems for the need for assertive anyway. We need to fix those problems so assertiveness works. One of the things I found out in doing research on assertiveness, because I'm very interested in assertiveness, I want people to be assertive. Assertiveness is a good thing. But what they found in the assertiveness training is this. If one is just taught assertiveness, number one, it won't last. And number two, if you don't fix self-esteem, it won't be effective, no matter how much training you do on assertiveness. So what that means is there are other factors involved that make assertiveness work. It's not just assertiveness alone that fixes it. Often we don't address the larger emotional system, only what I should do, and does not inform us as to what to expect, how to deal with the responses, how to maintain an ongoing life of assertiveness, or strengthening our emotional backbone. And often it does not deal with the enmeshment and fusion, which has often caused the lack of assertiveness in the first place. And I'm talking about a wider inside-out approach to building emotional backbone. Let me give you another example of outside-in approach, which does not take in enough information, nor does it see a wider system picture, and leaves the assertiveness seeker or backbone builder with a jelly backbone. For example, dad tries to be firm with the child. Child goes to mom. Mom undermines dad. Dad tries harder to be firm or strict with building discipline in the child, gets undermined by mom. Child becomes rebellious and dependent on mom. How has dad's assertiveness worked? Not well. Now, why not? He's doing all the right things. He's voicing his needs. He's expecting compliance. He's stating things clearly. He's dealing with the relationship with the child in what he thinks is a proper parental way. The problem is there's a triangle going on which is not being dealt with, which will then end up affecting the child, and also undermining the, quote, backbone or strength of the other parent. And if we don't deal with those, you can be as assertive as you want. If you're going to be undermined all around the place, it's not going to be very effective, and you're going to find yourself feeling weak and ineffective again, and thus give up on trying, because you see, what's the use? So do we tell dad to just go get some backbone and go be assertive? Well, no. He should just get more emotional backbone with mom, and then their child will be all right, right? So he should just go to the mom and say, stop that, and be more assertive with her. No, often it will only get worse. The approach is too simple, too external, uses a non-system way of looking at dynamics, and does not take in enough information. It does not see enough. And I call this kind of a straightforward linear approach, which often ends in failure. In other words, just go do this, go directly and say this, or do this, or be this way, but it doesn't take in system dynamics. Now, occasionally, this approach will work accidentally. So, on occasion, it actually will work. But I think it works less often than it actually, that it more often does not work than work. And it certainly doesn't usually work over time, over the long haul. Affair recovery is another approach which does not lend itself to overly simplified assertive behavior. The wife has an affair, the husband feels hurt and wounded, the husband believes being strong and assertive, and now begins to set boundaries and be more vocal about what he wants and what he wants his wife to do and not do. He is using his voice now, he's being strong, he's being assertive, but what happens with this power, assertive, linear approach? Do things get better or do they get worse? Well, accidentally, sometimes they get better. Most of the time, things get worse. And the wife finds her husband even less attractive. She finds him controlling, confused. She feels mixed feelings about the marriage. and does not focus on herself, but on her husband's newfound negative, pushy, police state assertiveness. And things get worse. So I've told you some ways in which things don't work very well. So what do we do? Is there a way out? Well, I believe there is. And let me share 2 points. Emotional backbone is mostly a fight between us and us, not between us and others. Power has to happen within me before I expect other people to take me seriously, to respect me, to hear me. Things have to happen within me. Oftentimes we don't do that work and just expect them to happen in other people and then wonder why they don't. Heal and recover from the demons of the past will begin to stop the fight between you and you. Others take advantage of the internal fight we experience. For example, we can remain firm or set boundaries because we can't remain firm or set boundaries because we feel too much guilt or too much shame, too much fear of abandonment, too much fear of rejection. So if you try to come out punching, you're going to end up weak again because you have too many of these fears going on. So just being strong externally is only going to scare you more. And how's that going to help you? We have to deal with the internal. Second of all, having emotional backbone does not simply occur because we have learned a few steps or some simple behavioral changes. I'm not against learning new behavior or learning some assertiveness training. And in fact, I think once you begin to change internally, it can be very useful. But to have success, deeper issues and systemic stuckness must be addressed. Using and having a voice, acting assertively, feeling and acting in a self-differentiated way only works well and in a long-term way if, and then let me share some things with you, if you learn to see and think systems, see how your lack of assertiveness and your sense of self is tied in with your family of origin and your current relationship system. Secondly, learn to calm yourself in highly charged emotional relationship situations. If we cannot calm ourselves, then we will fall back into the ruts of the past and our emotional demons will take over. And they'll take over one more time. Thirdly, become an expert on you. I don't mean selfish or self-centeredness. I mean becoming an expert on your thoughts, emotions, and not so much an expert on the thoughts and emotions and reactions of others. Now, systemic work and doing systems work does mean we kind of predict and can understand how someone else might react. But oftentimes we are far too much of an expert on others than we are on ourselves. Letting go of our naive and immature illusions, allowing us to grow up, though many don't want to because it's hard to grow up. Our illusions keep us weak and soften our emotional backbone. These illusions might be, I need my dad to love me to be happy and whole. I need my husband to think I'm special to be happy. I need my kids to not hurt my feelings so I can feel good about myself. I need others to stop betraying me before I can be happy. I need my wife to love me so I can be happy. If I am loving enough, love will come back to me. If I only act like I have emotional backbone, things will get better. Overfunctioning for others will get me into heaven. Love is really love when enmeshment occurs. And I can never get over my past. These are some of these illusions that we have that keep us from having good and healthy backbone. Fifthly, dealing with codependency, fusion, and enmeshment is a more long-lasting way to build an emotional backbone. Deal with enmeshment. That's going to make a big difference in feeling stronger and more powerful inside. Overfunctioning is another symptom of a soft emotional backbone. Helping and caring is not the same thing as overfunctioning. Doing self-care, also, number 7, builds emotional backbone. Let me share a little tip about saying no to others. Anne Brown, in her book on building emotional backbone, states, saying no is not about providing excuses. Saying no is not a rejection of others. Saying no is not about emotionally controlling outcomes. Saying no does not mean we are being difficult. I'd like to recommend some books to you. Saying What's Real by Campbell is his last name, very good book. When I Say No, I Feel Guilty by Smith. Developing Your Backbone, The Science of Saying No by Anne Brown. Your Mindful Compass by Chara, C-H-A-R-A. And the Harriet Lerner books like The Dance of Anger, The Dance of Fear. If you need help strengthening your emotional backbone, or need help with saying no without feeling guilty, or gaining a strong emotional backbone which allows you to quit controlling others, then I hope you'll give me a call or email me. I do in-office or Skype or FaceTime counseling online. Please contact me if you have any questions. I hope you'll like this video. I hope you'll put comments below. I respond to those. And I really want to thank you for listening today. I hope today was a help to you, and have a great day.